Welcome to Real Life in Real Estate. I'm Nickie Robbs, a local real estate agent serving Tacoma, Puyallup, and beyond. And I'm really excited because today I get to talk with Garret and Angela Willie of Do It Right Roofing. Now, roofing is one of those things that can be extremely expensive, and it's something we want to have evaluated early on in the buying process. But what about if you're a seller and a homeowner? I really want you to meet Angela and Garret because they bring a lot of information about types of roofs, when you should call a roofer, and consider your maintenance plan for your roof and your budget for future roofing. It was such a pleasure to sit down with them today. I think you're going to really like them. And now you know a roofer. And so if you need roofing expertise, I hope you call Garret and Angela Willie at Do It Right Roofing, and all of their contact information will be in the show notes. Right? Because I know when I like to call roofers, and it's usually when I'm at a house, we're doing an inspection, and at that time, because I'm there for so long, I start nitpicking the house and start realizing, oh, that looks odd. And that's when I want to call a roofer. But as a homeowner, maybe it didn't come up then, maybe it wasn't an issue then. So when should your average homeowner call you? What are the things they should look for? So start thinking about that.
Awesome.
Are there any other questions that you think, man, we really want to get this in front of homeowners so they're better educated?
I think it's kind of important to talk about the real estate transaction process when it comes to roofing, because it's one of the larger ticket items.
It really is.
And what that entails.
Yeah.
Because a lot of like real estate agents maybe would just want to take advantage of the contractor to come in and get their evaluation. But we don't do that for free in real estate transactions because you don't actually own the house.
Yeah.
So the home inspector isn't going to work for free. And we're not going to, just like somebody wouldn't go to Boeing and be like, you can have those 4 hours.
Yes. Right. So it's not a free consult. It is, I'm engaging your expertise for a period of time for a reason.
Yeah, and that's because we would be doing an inspection and report, and that.
And so that's not every transaction necessarily.
No.
If it's like, hey, we know the roof needs replaced, we need you to come in and help us create a plan for that, that we treat like any other thing. But if it's like, oh, the appraiser needs this, or the insurance in order to get the home insured needs that, then in those situations where we write an official report, it's not just creating a basic plan like we would with any homeowner, which ours is, I say basic, it's not really basic compared to other people who like write on a piece of paper and say, here, your roof is $10,000 or $20,000 or $30,000. So it's different than that, but like a very well put together report that we spend hours on. It's including photos and that kind of thing. So
okay, so we'll definitely cover that.
Yes.
Okay, that would be good because I had a transaction recently that I thought for sure VA loan, the appraiser will call out the roof.
And they did it? Really? Wow.
Okay, so now, out of my back pocket comes, here are my trusted roofers. You're about to need a roof.
Right?
You know this. I know this. The appraiser doesn't know this.
Wow.
And we're not home inspectors, but you should have a home inspection.
Oh, yeah.
Like I actually did the classroom work, took the state exam for the Washington State Home Inspection course. There was like 12, 15 people in the class that I was in, and we can talk about that, or you can use this part on it. When I did the class, the final exam was 200 questions. I finished it in like 23 minutes and got 198 correct.
Oh my gosh.
And another guy finished like 2 minutes before me, and he missed like 6 questions. And we went down to this bar that was like next door in the commercial building where the class was, and we sat there and we thought, I wouldn't trust anybody else other than the teachers in this class.
Oh my gosh.
And turned out he never did an inspection for pay because he was a real estate agent. He was just like wanting to be better service to his clients.
Yeah.
And I never did an inspection for pay because I was like, I'm too busy with the roofing company to do this. I'm not sure where this idea came from, but I'll just chalk it off to community education, being better. But I learned stuff from it, but I was teaching in the class.
Yeah.
I was like, well, actually, this is what the code is, or this is how you answer that question for the test, but it doesn't actually meet our requirements in Washington State.
Yeah.
That being said, it's not us, but not all home inspectors are equal.
Yeah.
We know a few really good ones.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of people out there that have the license, as example from the class, that 10% of the class actually could do a good inspection for somebody,
Mm-hmm.
which leads you to wonder how many people are you paying $400, $500, $600 to do an inspection of your home, and are you really getting the information you need?
Yeah.
And then every home inspector I know, even ones with 10,000 inspections under their belt, will still call me to ask me questions, which is kind of like, whoa, like you're the expert. And they're like, well, actually you're the, like debating who's the expert, right? Because like I'm very specialized when it comes to roofing. So home inspectors, even if they're super knowledgeable, will advise the professional representation in the specific area when they see a need.
Mm-hmm.
And we had one recently that the homeowner called for an inspection because she saw that there was problems from a contractor she had paid about $70,000 to for roof and siding. And he went out there and he said, you got to call Garret. And so one of our roofing advisors, which is our estimators, was going out to that job, and I saw some information on it, and I was like, I'm going with you.
Yeah.
You know, because it was going to be complicated. And it took a while because there was attorneys and stuff involved, but we just put a new metal roof on her house for, I think, about $37,000, and she paid $40,000 before, and we had to tear off the metal roof that was on there.
Oh my goodness.
Because they had put it over the top of the shingles and pretty much did everything wrong. And like we just did a completely different caliber of material and quality, and we were less money than the other people.
Holy cow.
And we had to tear off and get rid of everything they did, as well as the other stuff that was on there. So it was just, it's really sad. There's people out there that, you know, aren't good contractors as well.
It's true.
You know, so, but that's where the inspector came into play, because he was like, whoa, there's a lot wrong with this.
Yeah.
And then in the report that I wrote that went to the attorneys and whatever they did with that, I mentioned things on the siding that were wrong, but then I referred to, you need a siding contractor to confirm what the actual manufacturer specs and codes are on this. I just know it doesn't look right.
Yeah.
So that's probably about the same level of the home inspector. He knew that this doesn't look right, but he couldn't like list the codes and manufacturer requirements like I would.
Yeah.
On that. So there's specialties, you know, within different areas.
Instead of being a generalist, because that's what most home inspectors are. We're looking generally at how does this play out, and some home inspectors are really coming at it from the you need a to-do list standpoint, right? We're educating the buyer, and then other home inspectors are coming through and looking for what can go wrong, and it can just such a huge difference of perspective, and then how they communicate that to the buyer. And no two home inspectors are going to do it the same.
No. No, I've done like some inspections for people that weren't nothing to do with like professional inspection type thing, but where I remember one time I had a guy that like I said, hey, can you come look at this and like write up a report for me? It might have even been before I did the home inspection course stuff. And I told him, I was like, if I come back in a month, I will see something different than I see today. Because different light, different mindset, thought type thing, I'll just probably find something else. You know, so this isn't and what I'm saying is that even a home inspector or the roofer or any other contractor, they're not like God. They're not omniscient. They can't see through walls or floors. They can't even see everything, even when they crawl through a space or what have you in that moment necessarily, because they're going to see a lot more than the person that doesn't do anything with it. Normally, you know, and it's a frustration of a contractor when a homeowner who's watched a few YouTube videos and maybe remodeled their bathroom, they think they did, you know, or what have you in the past, and then somebody with, you know, 40,000 hours of experience is going to know a lot more than they do about a topic, you know, and anyways, that can be a frustration, you know, from the professional to the layperson when they think that they know as much as the contractor. My dad has 3 degrees. Both Angela and I have like bachelor's degrees. I was an officer in the Army. We are professional people, and a lot of times people see contractors as like the knuckle dragger type people. But reality is people that own businesses are often, they could have been anything, a doctor, lawyer, like whatever. And a lot of small business owners, these like plumbers and roofers and other contractors actually make more than the doctors and lawyers do financially.
Yeah, for one thing, life experience has got, there should be a degree for life experience, right? Yeah. And then there should be the degree for, I have successfully run a small business longer than 5 years, because those first 5 are really a doozy. And if you make it past that, you should get a degree for that too.
Right? Yes.
We were just kind of talking about that on the way here.
Yeah.
That it's small business, or any business, has this degree of difficulty that if anybody could do it, anybody would do it.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's a Harvard study that says it takes 17 years to make an overnight success. So people see someone like us who've been in business for like 13 and a half, 14 years, and we have a nice level of success, but not where we envision being, or where we're going to be, but we're on this trajectory. It's kind of like a crescendo thing that slowly goes up.
With a curve
and
too,
then
right?
the curve really takes off, which is why at 17 years you're up here on this graph.
Yeah.
And at 14 years you were here, and at 10 years you were down here. At 8 years I was in poverty.
Right?
But still pushing through. And
still determined, because you made it past 5.
Right? Yeah.
But in those first 5-6 years, back then, like 8-10 years ago, everybody that pretty much worked for me made more money than me, even though I was the most skilled person, as far as craftsmanship or whatever in the work that I was doing.
Yeah.
And then I see other business people that early on in a few years see like more success, and I don't know what the formula is behind it. Other than what Angela was telling me on the way here, is it's a mindset thing. Like, we have to level up ourselves. Once we as individuals get to a place of mindset, mental fortitude and strength, knowledge, this degree of education, which is the school of hard knocks, the world, there could be a modicum of luck, like picking the right thing, but the right thing is the right thing for the right person. So that's the only place where there's luck, is they still have to work their tails off. A lot of these people have worked more than 100 hours a week for years often. Yeah. Many years. Like I didn't take a vacation for like 5 years at one point, while working 70 to 100 hours a week, so that a lot of people will have done that, and then someone sees them like, oh, they're making $200,000-$300,000 a year, or whatever it is they perceive them to be making. And they think they were lucky. They just arrived there. I think we even have family members that think we're lucky. And we're like, our whole entire lives are either work or family. A little bit of like church stuff, and occasionally we do something for ourselves. But even like, we went to a special dinner thing the other night. It was an RCAW, which is the Washington State Roofing Association gala. So we got to dress up nice and go to a fancy dinner, but it was still kind of work.
It was work.
there was networking happening while we were there.
I bet there was.
And all the things. So,
yeah, totally.
Oh,
totally.
Yeah.
So that's all part of it. And then I mentioned something earlier about like the knowledge of the different types of trades or what have you. You can find that even within a trade. So I'm sure it's like, our trade happens to be roofing, and then Angela has another health and wellness business that I'd love to be able to have her share about. But the roofing, there's different layers or ability sets in that as well. We do a couple of specialized areas with flat, low slope roofing, like commercial roofing, and metal roofing. And both of those areas are like a very small percentage of professional roofers. Like less than 5%. So you can have someone who's been a roofer for 20 years who won't touch a metal roof, where there's a homeowner who thinks, oh, that looks easy, I can do it. And it's like, so there's a guy that 20 years of experience that's like knows better than to touch something that he's not going to mess up. And then we did a roof that we donated for a food bank type thing, where we were part of another roofer, and he hasn't been a roofing company for very long, a few years, and didn't have a lot of experience, but had volunteered to do this thing and was like asking for help. It was like, I was proud of him because it was like way over his head. I wouldn't have wanted to take on that project because it was big to donate, and there was like some flat roof sections of it for this food bank thing in Seattle. And so like, I can't remember if I called him or he called me. I think he called me, and I was like, hey, I'm glad you called. I want to talk to you about this. And I was like, I was just looking at the measurement stuff, and there's some flat roof stuff, and I think I should take over on that. And he was like, oh, that's exactly what I was wanting to talk to you about. Because I knew that I was like, that creates a liability issue for him to want to work on something that he probably doesn't have the experience to work on. Versus the foreman that I sent out there has been a roofer for like 26 years. So like,
huge difference. Like 3 to 5 years, 26 years, a huge difference. And it's a very specialized area that has a much more higher propensity of being able to leak and have problems, And so we, as a business, desire to be more and more specialized in those areas. And we're actually developing our business and growing to move more towards commercial and higher end residential. And we're still going to help our clients that we have from, all the referrals and stuff that come in, and keep the regular residential side of our business. But we're shifting our focus for growth to be in those other areas. That's awesome.
They say the riches are in the niches, which is why I picked roofing. And now I'm like realizing, I actually want to be more niched even within the industry.
That's what we've always been advised in all the things I've ever done. Like, we'll really find your sweet spot, and then find it. How small can I make it? Because then you're really serving only the people who really need it. And then they will refer you to the people who really need it. And it's this one thing.
Absolutely.
Haven't quite found mine yet for this one, but it's coming.
Nice. Good for you.
So welcome to the podcast.
He's probably making it hard for your son to edit, right?
Well, that's why he's the editor.
The beginning stuff is what your son's going to put at the end. The stuff we just did.
And he's right, and that will be fun. That will be fun. All of these are a little bit different, and so that's why I'd like to hire an editor.
Nice. Good job.
All right. So for Do It Right Roofing,
yes,
I love that you are so highly recommended. I hear your name all the time, and that's wonderful. But why do you do roofing? What got you into that industry?
The journey actually started approximately 30 years ago with Garrett's dad.
Okay, you're not old enough for that. So.
Right. Yeah. With his dad was in Christian education. And when you're in like private school sector, you don't necessarily make a lot of money. So on the side, he was a handyman during like, summer vacation or Christmas vacation or evenings or weekends to help provide for his family. So then 13 years ago, Garrett decided that he wanted to become a general contractor. And so partnered with his dad, because his dad had the basic knowledge or kind of the small project knowledge. He wanted to take it to the next level. So they started out house flipping, full house remodels, kitchens, bathrooms, outdoor kitchens, and roofs. So they were doing everything. And then in 2018, Garrett was thinking, like, what could we do to be more focused and specific? Because during those times, he shared with you a little bit, but he was the most talented person that got paid the least because he was always making sure his people were taken care of. And so he saw, after like looking at the books and analyzing things, hey, roofing could be one of those areas. It's typically pretty predictable. As long as you do a good inspection, in most situations, you can see what is needed, plan for it properly, and that type of thing. So that really, the end of 2018, is what made him decide to, focus. The ridges are in the niches, focus on roofing, and really become dialed. and he joined our networking group, and that's where I met him, and it was perfect timing because he joined, and then within weeks, right, about 3 weeks later, there was a storm, and he
first week.
Okay, in the first week. Okay, so he joined the first week. There was a storm, and he got a ton of business. And I then kept hearing him get shout outs.
Yeah.
And so I thought, who is this roofer? And so I scheduled a 1-to-1 with him. Yeah. And that is the beginning of the end of our story, the happily ever after. But we had a 1-to-1 that turned into a date. And so then I worked, at that point, I worked in the medical field, and I had my health and wellness business, which I still have today. But I left the medical field and joined him in the roofing company in 2020. Wow. So that's kind of the journey of what, it going way back with him, but then what brings me into roofing and the business. And
all right. So Angela, what do you do now? What is your role?
So I mostly focus on office staff. Officially, my title is VP of Operations. So really focusing on the financials, the back end systems, and training and onboarding staff, and bookkeeping types of things, billing, and stuff like that.
So a lot of back end office, but also kind of mothering everybody.
Yes.
Taking care of everybody also.
Absolutely.
Seems to fall into your niche pretty well.
It does. Yes.
So then Garret, you're really the dad of the company, taking care of the business and making sure your workers are not only well paid, but well cared for, getting the right people onto the right projects. This just sounds fantastic. What is your favorite type of roof to work on?
Okay, so I lead up sales and production, and my favorite type of roof to work on is a metal, standing seam metal roof. With metal, it's a lot of custom fabrication, and it literally is a piece of artwork. So when it's done well, and so we like to have things look and function really sharp. And so with a metal roof, it's probably the only kind of roof that's really going to last 50 years. And why I say it that way is all of the asphalt shingle manufacturers out there, most of their warranties are 50-year warranties now. But it's kind of like insurance. It's not actually designed to pay out for that 50 years.
I would agree, yes.
They have all sorts of stipulations, and that's going to be a whole other topic. We could probably have a 30-minute podcast just on roofing manufacturer warranties and how they can help but not necessarily be foolproof.
Yes.
Like insurance, But metal has very few parts that need maintenance on it. It's super easy to clean. Their warranties are 40 or 50 years, but that's on the paint fading.
Wow.
So yeah, you have a product that's actually going to last that long. And Angela and I, a few years ago, purchased our dream property out in Roy. We bought 20 acres, and we're going to build out there. And when we build, we're doing a metal roof.
Awesome.
Because we want to build something that will be there 50, 60 years from now.
Yeah, you're looking at the generations using it, and you're building something that's intended to last 100 years. Yeah, 50-year roof.
And and maybe longer, right? And that's kind of fulfills or fits into where we want to work too. We're helping other people with their normal house stuff, but it's, I don't know a way to say this nicely, but it's not very exciting to help people with stuff that's we pick the best materials that we can find, even with the shingles that are going on roofs. And I look at them and I go, it's okay. Still, even, I'm going to backtrack a little bit.
Okay.
One of our core values is quality. And there's a product that I used to put on, and I'm not going to put their name out there because they probably wouldn't like it. But I used to put on, and I was one day I was thinking about that, and I was yeah, it's okay. This other shingle manufacturer. Yeah. And then I thought to myself, I do a lot of talking to myself while I'm driving.
I bet.
And I was does it's okay fit a core value of quality? And that was the last time I put on one of those roofs for that manufacturer. And we've done repairs with them or whatever, because obviously if somebody has a tree branch go through, you're not going to be oh, you have to replace the whole roof. So there could be something that we're not snobs about it, but I'm not we just turn down dozens, if not hundreds of jobs that pick brands that I don't think are as high of quality as other brands. Just from what I've seen over thousands and thousands of roofs that I've looked at or worked on and projects that we've been on.
Yeah.
So we installed 2 of probably the 3 brands that I would feel comfortable with that are good quality. And they are GAF and Malarkey. And the other high quality brand that we don't really install, we may add it, but I don't really want to be diluted, is called Certainty. They're a good quality product as well. But even like all of those that are the best of the like probably 8 or 10 brands out there. So we pick the best ones and want to put the best products that they have. Yeah. Even then, they're still a shingle. Like it has a 50-year roof warranty. It's probably gonna last 25 or 30 years. You know. Especially in the Northwest, where we get all of this weather and all of these branches and pine needles and moss
and everything.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we don't have extreme heat, and we may not have extreme cold, but we do have extreme cold sometimes. We have extreme heat sometimes, and then we get the wind and the rain and the moisture and the moss and the ice and your roof sees everything. You couldn't possibly say, oh, for 50 years, and then how do you know what the weather's going to be in 50 years?
Right. Yeah.
And that's why, back to we like metal. Yeah. I had to like frame it why I like metal more than anything. So ultimately, if it was like our dream customer, which we've had lots of them, I mean,
I bet you do. I bet you really attract your dream customer. Well.
We're starting a metal roof tomorrow, and in the last month, we've probably done 3 or 4. You know, like we're always doing metal roofs, but like. I could see us being a contractor that predominantly does that. Yeah. You know, and then I like for the flat roofs, I like PVC. The material just goes together a lot better than some of the other membrane type materials that are out there and lasts longer. And it's actually, I mean, that's on like schools. There's PVC on roofs that have been on there for 50 years. Yeah. So for a flat roof, that's like almost unheard of. And it's much easier to like work with as far as repairs and stuff goes. And it's a little bit more money than pretty much all the other flat roof applications. Yeah. But again, if it's going to last, right. You know, and then the manufacturer that we use for that is Duralast, and they're the largest PVC manufacturer in North America, and they offer bar none the best warranties. Like we just did Binford Metals, which is a recycling company, one of their flat roofs, and manufacturer came out, inspected the whole thing, and they got a 20-year no dollar limit warranty that covers $2 million of the building.
That's amazing.
The building wouldn't even cost that much to replace.
Wow.
But there are buildings that are, you know, $30 million buildings that if a leak happens could cause 7 figures of damage. Yes. And the manufacturer is warranting that.
That's incredible.
So nobody else, like their no dollar limit warranties are just on materials, sometimes materials and labor. Duralast has a warranty option. You know, there's specifics that we have to meet for that criteria, but that's just incredible for a building to give value and protect someone's investment on the commercial side. So
that's amazing. That's amazing. Yeah. While you're talking about that, I'm thinking of all of the flat roofs that I've had experience with, which has been church buildings and commercial buildings, and always wondering, I don't know anything about this. I don't know anything about this. Yeah. All right, so one of our questions that I prefaced with is, since this is geared for homeowners and home buyers, how do we know when to call a roofer? I mean, and the obvious one is when there's a leak, but there's so many other good times to call a roofer, and since you're the expert, when would you like to be called?
I mean, I would say one of the things is for regular maintenance. Now, some homeowners prefer to do their own, and as long as they're doing it, that's great.
Yes.
So they really need to keep the roof clean, keep it blown off. They don't pressure wash it. Pressure washing, especially when it's shingles, will void manufacturer warranties. Yeah. It degrades the shingles, they fall apart, that kind of thing. So, but making sure that it's kept clean with whether it's soft wash, brushing it off, blowing it off, keeping the gutters clean. Again, if the gutters fill up and then it's wintertime, water, it freezes, just all kinds of issues. So making sure the basic maintenance is happening. If somebody has tree cover, a lot of tree cover, that might be every 3 to 6 months or a couple of times during the fall season when there's, leaves and debris and wind, storms, that kind of thing. But at a minimum, typically once a year. If they don't have any tree coverage, it's pretty open. Every 2 or 3 years can be okay. But that maintenance piece is so important. And for us, that's not really something that makes money. It's a service that we provide because we want to be able to serve people. It's very, very small amount of money that our company makes. And it really covers back-end costs, like the cost of employees that are scheduling and coordinating and all of that stuff. So it's more about the long term and helping them to get as much life out of their roof and being there to serve them if they have an insurance claim or a repair or a gutter need or something like that. Because we are, full service. We offer everything. But really, that main thing is making sure that maintenance is happening. Do you have anything like thoughts to add on that so that it's taken care of it first?
A lot of people are, they wonder what it costs to do that. And typically it's $700 to $1,200 to do roof and gutter cleaning. And people think we're making $700 to $1,200 on it. And just to put it in perspective, we spend $80,000 a year on insurance. So if you have 500 customers over the course of the year, you have to divide that by the 500 customers. And then we spend about $4,000 a month on fuel. And then all of the labor costs, I don't know what that is, maybe $800,000 a year. So all of those costs have to be associated down to every job. And so and then we literally, if we're making a couple $100 on a job, it's really not worth our time to do it because it costs us that on average on back end overhead costs. We have office staff, we have bookkeeping at $75 an hour, like all of these different things that
they really add up, don't they?
And, and people don't realize, they're like, oh, your guys made $100 an hour, and we're like,
no, they didn't.
Or we did, or something like. There's a cost associated with that, and then we have a customer that we're going to be cleaning their roof, and we need to put safety anchors on, and that customer told us, it was like, well, I can't climb on the top roof because it's not safe, and I go, and neither can we. That's why it's like $700 to clean your roof. Right. And it's like a smaller roof. And they were like, they called back a few days later and said, okay, let's do it. And that's because they just had enough time to like think about it. It's like, well, if you can't do it, we can't do it. There's a reason why the cost is associated with it. So I think like if we think maybe Lexus would be the most reliable vehicle out there, that's like a luxury car or what have you, for a vehicle, and we were to put that into the aspect of if you didn't maintain it, 5 years later your Lexus would die, even if you spent $100,000 on that car.
It's so true.
Now you have a car that you still owe $40,000 on, let's say. And it doesn't run. You killed it. And actually, the pastor of our church, Pastor Rogers, said his daughter did this. She bought a Volkswagen Jetta or whatever with her own money and what have you, and like 3 or 4 years, 5 years later, she's like, Dad, the car's dead on the side of the road. And he's like, it probably had like 40,000 miles on it or something. And he was like, how could that be? That's a good quality vehicle and whatever. And happenstance, he asked her, and she had never done any services or oil changes.
No oil change in 5 years. Isn't that crazy?
Oh, wow.
So that's why her car was smoking on the side of the road.
It all makes sense now.
Destroyed her car, right? Somehow people, it's not just roofing. Like you have to maintain your home. And 1 to 2% of that home value should be set aside every year. It doesn't mean that you're spending that. But if your home is worth $400,000, you should be setting aside $6,000 to $8,000 a year. Maybe there'll be years that you spend a couple thousand because you should be maintaining something. And then like 4 years into it, you have to spend $25,000 on a new roof, or $3,000 on a water heater, or what have you.
Because I discussed that with my first time home buyer class, because we do need to, oh yay, I own my own home now. Okay, well then when the water heater dies, that's you.
Yeah.
And when the furnace dies, that's you. And when
Yeah.
your roof needs cleaning, that's you. And so we have to not only afford our monthly payment, but we need to plan for all of the maintenance. And sometimes it is a surprise. And so if you can budget, right?
Yeah, if you're budgeting,
Yeah.
let's say in that situation, you're budgeting $350 a month,
Yeah.
and you put it into a separate account.
Mm-hmm.
And it could even be like a money market account that makes you a couple percent or what have you, but you want to be able to have access to it when you need it.
Yeah.
Or soon after you need it. Like
Mhm.
if you have credit cards and stuff that you could take care of something on, but you want to be able to
Yeah.
pay those things off. And if you've been setting that money aside for a long period of time, you'll be okay.
Yeah.
What happens is most people don't plan for things or set
Mhm.
money aside or have extra money coming in that they can afford those things.
Yeah,
And
and then
we're
it really
contractors,
is,
yeah.
surprise, there's a leak. I've got water coming in my house. Oh my gosh, I don't know what to do.
Right.
And then that's usually when we call you.
Right. Yeah. It is the most common reason we get called, but and then it's a little bit of like, oh my gosh, I feel like this is an emergency. I need to do it
Mhm.
yesterday, kind of thing. One of the things also, because I was mentioning, maintenance is
Yeah.
when people should call us unless they're
Yes.
comfortable doing their own. But the people who do our maintenance are roofers. So our
Okay.
in-house employees, roofers, the two foremen, like he said earlier, one of them has 26 years experience and the other one has is it
17.
11? Oh, 17.
Mhm.
So they're the people that are coming and leading the crew that's
Mhm.
coming, and it's not going to be your basic high school or college student that's paid minimum wage or a little bit more. I mean, our
Yeah.
basic roofer
Yeah.
that's early in his career makes, like $22 an hour. So we're paying people well that know what they're doing to
Mm.
clean and maintain the roof.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it comes into obviously that cost that we're
Yes.
talking about, because again, that's
Because
the
you're
big
not
question.
hiring the neighbor kid.
Right.
You're not.
Right.
That's
Yeah.
so important. So what about for home buyers? Because I've seen this, we alluded to it earlier, where we're at an inspection and the roof just looks a little off. So when should we call you? But before or after the appraisal? If the appraiser says something, then should we call a specialist? Or if the inspector says something and says, you really should get a roofing specialist to come out, what's your preference for that?
I would say if your home inspector says something,
Mm-hmm.
that would be the time, because it could potentially be negotiated in as part of the transaction.
That is my favorite.
So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
so we, for a fee on a residential purchase, can do a report
Mhm.
with an estimate, and then if we're hired on a replacement, we credit that towards people.
That's so
very
fair.
But
Right.
that way, it's $250 or something like that,
Mhm.
where we do the inspection and the report, and that way that's fuel for, what the typical roof replacement is, like $23,000 now. Some are less, some are more, depends on the house,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like I just did an estimate for somebody yesterday that was like $13,000 because it was a smaller house, but
Mhm.
a lot of them are a lot more than the 23,000. It
Yeah.
just totally depends on the house.
It really does.
So-
We've got several houses here in the Tacoma area with just very straightforward two-side roof. No big
Right.
deal. But then we have my neighbor's house. It's a whole work of art over there.
Mhm. And some of them are really steep.
Yes.
So many factors that go into it. Some of them have bad plywood, and the cost of wood since
Yeah.
COVID, it's not as crazy as it was in the middle of
Thank
COVID.
goodness, 'cause
right?
that was
It's
a little
recovered.
nuts.
Yeah. But it's still not as cheap as it
Oh.
was before COVID.
Yeah.
So it can be an expensive line item
Yes, it
for
can.
somebody who needs all of their plywood replaced.
Mhm.
If they're going from a cedar shake roof to a shingle or a metal roof
Mhm.
or something like that where there is no plywood,
Yeah.
currently, those kinds of things can be significant line items in the project plan.
Yeah.
So,
And you won't know that unless someone's looking at it.
right.
Yeah.
And so we look at a roof from the top, from the ground, and from attic spaces.
Very good.
So we want to be able to have full access for an inspection, because that's what allows us to know what's actually needed.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, I've seen a few roofers only on just taking a look from the exterior, and I've had a few roofers get inside, take a look from the attic space, which it just gives you more information. I think that's really important.
Absolutely.
I wouldn't
Yeah.
trust anyone who didn't go inside.
Right.
You didn't go inside. You know,
know,
I've seen houses that are they come out of the attic and then they tell me what they found.
Yeah,
that was shiplap up there. I'm like,
right.
Oh,
Whoops.
okay. Good to know.
That changes the plan,
Yes.
right? But you know, there are plenty of times when Garrett or Brad, our roofing advisor, go to a customer's house and they're the second or third roofer that they are maybe meeting with, and the others didn't even climb on the roof. So not necessarily even think about going in the attic, but didn't climb on the roof. We're like, wait, what?
What? They're just standing on the sidewalk?
Mm-hmm. So, you know, they're sometimes something that's soft you maybe don't see from the ground, but if you're stepping on it,
you'll know.
You know?
Yeah.
So again, it just helps them to give a more detailed plan, create the most accurate plan possible for those kinds of situations.
Totally agree.
Yeah. And one of the things that we offer for people who are buying and selling is closing, or payment upon closing through escrow. So we can coordinate and schedule, because sometimes if it is called on inspection or an appraisal, the home loan can be tied to it, or getting homeowners insurance. So that's something that we can offer as part of the closing process. We just simply get connected to the escrow account, and they pay us out of escrow, and it works really simple.
That's really helpful because a lot of sellers might be strapped for cash, but we have all the equity is tied up in the house. Right. And then, when especially homeowners who have owned their home for more than 5 years at this point, there's plenty of equity in the house. Yeah. So let's use that. Let's put on a new roof. That's fantastic. Yeah. Awesome. Cool. Is there anything else you think, wow, we really want to make sure we hit this button today? What other topics?
I think we've covered all the things. You have good questions.
Well, that's good. and we've come about it both from the beginning chat and then the few questions I had for sure. So is there any, but I really want to make sure we're getting you in front of the right people. I'm assuming you cover a lot of Pierce County. Are there any areas where that's not your location? That's not your
really
preferred service area?
For a full roof replacement, we go anywhere in Western Washington. We even go over into Cleellum because there's a lot of metal roofs there, and that. So really anything in this area. If it's a smaller project where somebody needs an emergency tarping or a small amount of gutters replaced, and it's north of Seattle, we probably wouldn't necessarily be cost effective because of the travel time. But for full size, full roof or full building projects, we'll go pretty much anywhere.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Yay. Thank you so much for being here. Yeah. And then we will have all of your contact information in the show notes. So if you are ready to start talking roofing, or you're in a situation where you need a roofer right away, then you need to call Do It Right Roofing and get started, right?
Yeah, we appreciate you having this podcast. It's really cool, great space, and inviting us to be part of it. So thank you.
Yeah. Thanks so much for being a part of this episode. I hope you got to learn a lot about roofing and roofing related needs, because at Do It Right Roofing, they do a lot and they are going to really care for you just like their family. If you have any roofing needs, please reach out to Do It Right Roofing, and all of their contact information will be below in the show notes. And as you heard, they cover a lot of territory depending on what the job is. So please give them a call. And if you are thinking of buying, selling, or investing, I would love to talk to you, especially early on in the new year. You would not believe how many times I meet someone in January or February, but the actual sale of their home doesn't occur until maybe May or even August. So if selling in 2025 is a part of your to-do list, I would love to talk to you early and often. You can reach me. All my contact information is in the show notes, and it doesn't matter if you're in Tacoma, Puyallup, or beyond. Anywhere in Thurston or Pierce County, even parts of Kitsap County, I would love to serve you. I'd love to help you. If you know someone, referrals are my favorite. Thank you for listening. Today's episode was edited and produced by Will Robs.